Okay, good afternoon everyone, and a very warm welcome to this joint webinar between Business and the Community and Public Health England. Today we're going to spend an hour looking at the subject of sleep and recovery. And the webinar is based around a new toolkit that was developed in association with Public Health England, first of its kind, and it was launched last week. So I hope you're all sitting comfortably. Obviously not too comfortably, we don't want anyone nodding off, but we do have a good number of people on the line already. I can see nearly 70 attendees, so we will begin straight away. So allow me to introduce myself. I'm Stephen G. I'll be facilitating the webinar today. I'm a Senior Development and Business Support Manager within the membership team at Business in the Community. And I always love to see BITC pushing the boundary with its new developments, which the wellbeing team have been doing for many years now, and this work continues to do so. So I'll be your facilitator today, but I'll also be an active listener. As a father of a 2-year-old with another one due in 4 weeks, this is a subject close to my heart, and I'm going to take any help I can get in these testing stages of life. Just a few points of housekeeping then before we start. You may have realised that you've entered this webinar in listen-only mode. That doesn't mean you can't communicate with us. You can type a question. You do that in the question box on the right-hand side of your screen. And in fact, just to let us know that the audio is working, could you all just type yes into that box and send it now, if you can hear me? Yeah. Fantastic. That's hugely comforting. Thank you very much. So if you do have a question, you can type it any time, and we'll be responding to questions in the Q&A session at the end. Also worth mentioning, the session is being recorded. You'll have access to it via our website, and you'll get the link to the location on the website following this webinar. And we're due to finish at 1:45, just to clarify. So the toolkit was developed by Business in the Community in association with Public Health England. So now I'm going to introduce the people that you've really dialed in to hear from. They are Louise Aston, Wellbeing Director at Business in the Community, and Manuel Ramos, Health Programme Manager at Public Health England. So I'm going to hand over to Louise, who's going to explain to you why sleep is a new emerging topic for employers. Louise, over to you.
Thanks, Steve. Hi everybody, I'm Louise Aston here, Wellbeing Director at Business in the Community. This has been a really exciting topic to work on. Is delighted to be working with Public Health England. It's an evidence-based toolkit, but the actual research, the evidence is still very limited. New topic for employers. I think that businesses are really waking up to the importance of sleep as an integral strand of well-being, because obviously sleep is connected to both physical and mental health. But I think one of the big drivers is around the 24/7 digital economy. It's brought us many good things, but the downside is that we're on the go all the time, and the dividing line between our work and home lives has actually blurred. So in a connected kind of society, we're always switched on, and modern lifestyles leave less time to sleep, and when we do sleep, it's often interrupted or cut short. So in terms of really confirming that sleep quality is really important to the nation, sleep really came to the fore with the Sainsbury's Living Well Index findings, which was launched last October, and that was based on a nationally representative study into how Britons feel about their quality of life. And sleep quality came out as the strongest indicator of sleeping well. In fact, sleep quality is so important to Britain's quality of life. For the typical Brit, improving their sleep to the level of those who are sleeping best would be the equivalent of having 4 times as much disposable income. So it really is a hot topic. is Sainsbury's will be repeating that survey, and the new findings will come out again in October. The other big story that hit the press again last October was the story about Antonio Orta-Osorio, CEO from the Lloyds Banking Group. So basically, this was a story that came out of the Saturday Times actually, and Antonio publicly described for the first time how restoring Lloyds Bank's fortunes almost shattered his mental health. So he's the only chief executive of a bailed out UK bank to have paid back every penny to the government. However, within months of starting the Lloyds job, he was in the Priory Clinic for 9 days with sleeping pills, resting 16 hours a day in order to prevent his body tipping into a total nervous breakdown. He was stressed, unable to switch off, consumed by the magnitude of the task ahead of him. His insomnia had reached a crisis point and he'd not slept for 5 days. So as insomnia and anxiety set in, he lost more and more of himself. His speech slowed, his concentration in meetings were not as sharp, his quick grasp of figures fell away. He was so worried about the promise he'd made to pay back all the money within 100 days of being in the post. He couldn't sleep, he felt detached, and his anxiety levels were really, really high. So the fact that actually the fatigue was a symptom of the underlying anxiety he was feeling that's what was the root issue. So it's really important to point out that Antonio's chairman and board were really supportive of him, and he got help quickly after he disclosed. They could have easily have written him off, particularly after Lloyd's shareholder value plummeted by 5%, but they were enlightened enough to believe that with the right support, he could get better. So obviously Antonio's back at the helm, Lloyd's share price is doing really well, and as a preventative measure, Lloyd's now plans to provide resilience training for their senior leaders. So this is an infographic based on our evidence base that was compiled by Public Health England, and clearly there's a really compelling business case for sleep with an annual cost of £30 billion due to insufficient sleep and 200,000 working days lost in the UK. So adults need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep a night, which amounts to spending a third of our lives sleeping. So adults who sleep fewer than 6 hours a night have a 13% mortality risk than adults who sleep 7 hours. And adults who sleep less than 7 hours a day are 30% more likely to be obese than those who sleep 9 hours or more. And as you've just heard, Sainsbury's Living Well Index highlighted sleep as the biggest contributor to living better. So when we approached sleep as a topic, is obviously sleep is affected by physical health and mental health, and the toolkit is joining our interconnected toolkit suite for employers that we've developed in association with Public Health England. So obviously we know that sleep is inextricably linked to both physical and mental health. So lack of sleep is being linked to high blood pressure, heart disease and diabetes, and obviously that raises the risk of accident and injury. Sleep is also essential for maintaining skills such as communicating well, remembering key information, and being creative and flexible in thought. But also sleep deprivation can also make people irritable and grumpy. So it can have a really adverse impact on how we treat colleagues, and of course that will impact on customer service. So in fact, sleep is connected to all of these toolkits. Obviously mental health could have manifest itself as sleep deprivation. At the severe end of the spectrum, it could be linked to suicide. Obviously, if you're in extreme pain due to musculoskeletal disorder that could keep you awake at night, is in March we've got 2 new toolkits coming through on physical activity, diet and weight management, and also drugs, alcohol and tobacco. And again, all of those topics are linked to sleep as well. So here's the toolkit cover. It's live on our website. Here's the link, wellbeingbitc.org.uk. As I said before, the development was informed by an evidence review produced by Public Health England's library team, and the evidence was considered by a steering group made up of practitioners, professionals and business experts. The toolkit's been piloted with 8 organisations, public, private, small, large organisations, and I think it's important that this toolkit is actually relevant to every organisation. So sleep's a basic human need and is equally important to health as good diet and exercise. It's absolutely fundamental for good health and well-being. It's essential for maintaining levels of cognitive skills such as speech, memory, innovation and flexible thinking, and lack of sleep can also have a profound impact on our brain's ability to function. So the cumulative impact of successive nights of poor sleep is significant. So employers really are becoming increasingly aware of the impact of sleep deprivation on the health and well-being of employees and how that impacts on them. Sleep deprivation is often associated with shift work or work that takes place during antisocial hours, and certain occupations are particularly at risk of impacted sleep. So, for example, hospital night workers, emergency services, police 24/7 call centres. But lack of sleep doesn't just affect shift workers. Stress at work is a significant cause of poor sleep. So employees in any organisation, whatever their working patterns, can experience sleep deprivation.
Okay, thanks Louise, fascinating stuff. And actually before we move on and Manuel talks through the toolkit, we've got a little myth-busting quiz for you. If you're paying attention, there's a few of the answers in there that we've covered already. But the first myth is you can function well on 5 hours or less sleep. And what we've found is that, in fact, adults need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep at night to function well. Nobody can perform at their best if they've not had sufficient good quality sleep. And so there's evidence that shows that it matters obviously to the individuals, but it really matters to businesses as well. Because if you think of the consequences of poor sleep, it can lead to poor interpersonal interactions in the workplace, poor customer service, mistakes and accidents. So we need to raise awareness and encourage wider discussion around the impact of sleep deprivation and the impacts in work and across society. And the conversations around sleep we think need reframing, and cultures that hold that getting by with very little sleep is something to be admired, well, that needs to be challenged. So sleep deprivation is a huge organisational risk that could result in poor decision making. It could affect the lives of thousands of people, and potentially it could cause fatalities. The next myth, lack of sleep never killed anyone. I wonder if anybody's ever been told this, because what we've found is that statistics show adults who sleep fewer than 6 hours a night have got this 13% higher mortality risk than adults who sleep at least 7 hours. So we're saying that sleep is essential to a healthy life. Deprivation of sleep increases the risk of premature death, mental health problems, and disease and disability. So I think that's really worth knowing. Myth number 3. Insomnia in the UK is a rare condition. Well, actually, 1 in 3 people are affected by insomnia in the UK. Insomnia simply means difficulty getting to sleep or staying asleep for long enough to feel refreshed the next morning. And It's a common problem thought to regularly affect around 1 in 3 people in the UK, particularly in elderly people. And if you've got insomnia, you'll certainly know about it. You may find it difficult to fall asleep. You may lie awake for long periods at night, wake up several times during the night, wake up early in the morning and simply not be able to get back to sleep. And I think importantly, you won't feel refreshed when you get up, and you'll find it hard to nap during the day despite feeling tired. And also, you'll probably feel tired and irritable during the day and have difficulty concentrating. So we know that occasional episodes of insomnia may come and go without causing any serious problems, but for some people, this can last for months and even years at a time. So what factors impact sleep? Here's a little checklist for you. Which of those do you think would typically impact sleep? And the answer, of course, is all of the above. There's probably more than one reason that people don't sleep. They may not be related to work, although the impact will be felt in the workplace. And line managers should really try and understand what's causing this sleep deprivation to be able to take steps to address the problem. And that includes recognizing when changes to the work that employees are doing can help remove some of the sleep deprivation. So I hope that's given you some food for thought. And now I'm going to hand over to Manuel to walk you through the toolkit in a little more detail.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to outline the key issues to consider in this toolkit for employers when addressing sleep and recovery. So shift work. Millions of people work in shifts at night or on split, rotating and varying schedules. Shift work can take its toll on employees' minds and bodies. Recent evidence suggests that shift workers are at increased risk of chronic illnesses such as heart disease, gastrointestinal diseases, and possibly some cancers. Employers should recognise the duty of care they owe to shift workers. Another key issue to consider is travel and working across time zones. The globalised nature of today's business world means that employees are increasingly likely to work across time zones. International travel is an integral part of many occupations, while many other occupees work outside normal office hours to support colleagues or customers in other parts of the world. In such cases, the demand of work can disrupt healthy sleep and become a barrier to recovery. Jet lag is one of the common issues impacting sleep. Typical consequences of jet lag include disturbed sleep, decreased alertness, general malaise, and impaired daytime function. When it is necessary for employees to travel across time zones, there are simple behavioural adjustments that can be made before, during and after travel to help minimize some of the side effects of jet lag. For example, select a flight that allows early evening arrival and stay up until 10 p.m. local time. Anticipate the time change for trips by getting up and going to bed earlier, several days prior to an eastward trip and later for a westward trip. Bring earplugs and blindfolds to help dampen noise and block out unwanted light while sleeping. Another key issue to consider is around driving and road safety. Managing the risk of fatigue and sleep deprivation for employees who drive can save lives. Driver fatigue is a serious problem that results in thousands of serious injuries and deaths on Britain's roads every year. It is estimated that fatigue may be a factor in up to 20% of all road accidents and up to a quarter of fatal and serious accidents. Driving when fatigued is an offence under road traffic law and may result in prosecution leading to imprisonment and other penalties. Every week, around 150 British road deaths and serious injuries involve someone using the roads for work purposes. The Royal Society for Prevention of Accidents names driving as the most dangerous work activity that most people do. Around 40% of sleep-related accidents involve drivers of commercial vehicles. Employers should consider not only the risks of those whose primary occupation is driving, but also those who routinely drive long distances for work and those who commute to and from work by road. The next section is about understanding sleep deprivation and what it entails. What are the signs of sleep deprivation? Well, the challenge for line managers is to be able to recognise the symptoms of sleep deprivation or poor sleep, particularly when it might be a health and safety issue that puts colleagues or members of the public at risk. So knowing what to look for is important. The signs of sleep deprivation include decreased communication, performance deterioration, poor concentration, easy distraction, poor cognitive assimilation and memory, poor mood, inappropriate behaviour, greater risk-taking behaviour, inability to make reasonable adjustments, increased intake of caffeine, energy drinks, increased sickness, and sickness absence. So what are the causes of sleep deprivation? There are some work-related ones. There are many reasons why people who do not sleep enough or suffer from a broken night's sleep, which may result in them suffering from tiredness the following day. There may be more than one reason, and they may not be related to work, but the impact will be felt in the workplace. Line managers should try to understand what is causing sleep deprivation to be able to take steps to address the problem, including recognizing when changes to work can help remove some causes of sleep deprivation. When health and safety is a concern, such as handling heavy machinery, an employer may request an employee consult with a GP before resuming duties. It's a fact that an employee might not even be aware that he or she is not sleeping enough and may not be able to pinpoint the reasons. This might be the first time an employee has considered the significance of sleep. Some of the work-related causes are, shift patterns. Shift work can create issues because it involves working against the body's natural rhythm. Time zone work. Globalization means that more people work across international time zones, either traveling in person or engaging with customers and suppliers outside normal working hours by phone or email. Allowance must be made for extending work hours and the time it takes to recover from jet lag and international time differences. Air travel within the same or similar time zone can also be disruptive to sleep. Another key cause is working day week. Louise mentioned this before, 24/7 economy requires that many of us work longer than generations ago. Even when our formal working hours have not changed substantially, we find it harder to disconnect from work because of our mobile devices and expectations of an immediate response, regardless of time or day or night. So employees should be encouraged to disconnect from work emails, calls and texts between agreed hours and at weekends. And sharing out-of-hour calls across teams can also help. Stress is a big factor. Work-related stress can have an adverse impact on sleep. The risk is greatest at times of change or when there is uncertainty at work. Some stress can be positive, but stress is persistent over long periods of time is detrimental. Stress can make it difficult to rest and sleep can cause fatigue. Work relationships. Work is central to many people's lives and relationships with colleagues have a significant bearing on well-being. A difficult relationship with a line manager or bullying by colleagues can cause stress, which carries over into a person's home life, disrupting sleep. So other causes of sleep deprivation can lead to changes in health and well-being. So a short-term illness or injury can affect the quality of sleep or cause sleep deprivation. Small adjustments to working arrangements, including working from home and flexibility around working hours, may aid recovery. Onset of a lifelong condition disability. Employees diagnosed with a serious illness or those who experience a life-changing disability are more likely to suffer from sleep deprivation in addition to other problems linked to the diagnosis. A side effect of medication or treatment such as chemotherapy can cause sleep disturbance. Mental health. There is a close relationship between sleep and mental health. Living with a mental health issue can affect how well you sleep, and poor sleep can have a negative impact on sleep and mental health. Pregnancy. Sleep can be difficult at any stage of pregnancy, and adjustments must be made in the workplace if an employee chooses to disclose their pregnancy. Age-related. It is a myth that older people need less sleep, but we are less able to sleep in a single block as we age. When we are older, we are more prone to being affected by poor sleep environment or unchanged lifestyle factors. An older workforce may need more time to recover from a late night shift than in their younger years. Another key cause is menopause. Menopause transition can disrupt sleep from a prolonged period. Employees are encouraged to make adjustments at work, such as providing desk fans, cold water fountains, access to natural light, quiet workplace rest areas, and non-synthetic clothing or uniforms. There are a lot of personal and lifestyle factors that can cause sleep deprivation. These include poor housing, financial, bereavement, becoming new parents, and personal life issues. For example, in poor housing, living conditions that are noisy, cramped, damp, or poorly heated and ventilated can contribute to fatigue and sleep deprivation. While most employers have limited scope for influencing where people live, it is important to understand the pressures that employees and their families must cope with, in order to provide appropriate support in the workplace. Financial stress is a big issue. Money problems can cause anxiety, which leads to sleep deprivation. Bereavement. The loss of a loved one can precipitate an extended period of sleep deprivation. Fatigue, anxiety, and mood swings are common during bereavement. So knowing that your employer supports them can help to minimize employee stress levels and reduce or avoid periods of sick leave, as well as aiding sleep and recovery. Becoming a parent is a blessing, but one inevitable consequence for new parents is sleep deprivation. Families have the option of shared parental leave, but employers also should consider making other reasonable adjustments, particularly in the first few months. And personal life can have a major impact. Significant changes at home can also affect sleeping patterns for prolonged periods, with a detrimental impact at work. Divorce and separation should be considered as risk factors, as should disputes over child custody. So what are sleep disorders? So in this slide we look at some of them. So sleep deprivation or poor sleep may be a consequence of a clinical sleep disorder, or this may be a contributory factor. Line managers should encourage employees to seek advice from their GP for symptoms of a possible sleep disorder. These include insomnia and breathing-related disorders such as obstructive sleep apnea. They can have a significant impact on health and well-being, but they can be treated. Your line managers have a key role, and they should consider health and safety implications when an employee has been diagnosed with a clinical sleep disorder. The questions that line managers should ask are, does it put the safety of colleagues or members of the public at risk? Should an employee be temporarily reassigned to other duties? Another key thing is workplace adjustments. They may be required to support employees who have clinically diagnosed sleep disorder, including extended leave or working from home, temporary help with work responsibilities, or reassignment to another role. A key tool for line managers are the HSE management standards. As mentioned before, stress is one of the main causes of sleep deprivation or poor sleep quality. In many cases, the cause of stress is outside the workplace, but in around a third of cases, it is related to work. All employers have a legal responsibility under the Health and Safety at Work Act of 1974 to ensure the health and safety and welfare at work of their employees. This includes minimizing the risk of stress-related illnesses or injury to employees. The HSE management standards refer to 6 areas of work that can lead to stress if not properly managed. These include demands, such as workloads, work patterns, and the work environment, control, how much a person has in the way they do their work, support. This includes the encouragement, sponsorship, and resources provided by the organisation to line managers and colleagues. And the job role itself, whether people understand their role in the organisation, and whether the organisation ensures that they do not have conflicting roles. And how you manage change. Organisational change is managed and communicated in the organisation. And the importance of relationships, promoting positive working relationships to avoid conflict and dealing with unacceptable behaviour are important. So sleep hygiene. What does sleep hygiene mean? Well, these are the conditions for a good night's sleep, and this infographic really illustrates all the different, the key conditions that are part of sleep hygiene. These include fixed times for going to bed and waking up, regular physical activity that can positively impact sleep, also keeping to a relaxing bedtime routine. Another key one is maintaining a comfortable sleeping environment that's not too hot, cold, noisy, or bright. Another one is avoiding caffeine and nicotine and alcohol late at night. Avoiding eating a heavy meal late at night. Also, avoid watching television, making phone calls, eating and working while in the bedroom. Another key thing is to turn off all devices at least 1 hour before bedtime and keeping technology out of the bedroom. Another key thing is to avoid using your smartphone as an alarm clock and changing the phone away from the bedroom as a central charging point from everyone in the household. Now I'll give you back to Louise.
Okay, thanks, Manuel. So the third section of the toolkit is all about what actions you as an employer can take, but there is also a degree of personal responsibility. And I think really the key thing is to start talking about sleep, is in terms of fueling the debate around sleep, in terms of, you know, after this or during this webinar is you can tweet, but let's fuel the debate about sleep generally. So as with most kind of health promotion is we recommend a three-pronged approach. So that's starting with prevention. And this is really about the importance of embedding sleep and recovery into your organization's health and well-being strategy. So here is a kind of checklist in terms of creating the right culture for providing support. But as I said, this is about promotion, but it's also about encouraging personal responsibility in terms of people actually ensuring that they do actually follow some of those sleep hygiene tips that Manuel gave you. The next is obviously early intervention. So starting the conversation, well, even training line managers to recognize and have a difficult conversation about what is the underlying cause of sleep deprivation is quite a tricky conversation to have in many cases. So it is about training and supporting line managers to intervene when necessary, and to approach the topic in a caring and concerned way. So it's opening a dialogue with employees to talk and recognise that sleep deprivation is a problem and what the root cause is. Basically, remember that many will not consider that sleep and recovery is an issue that can and should be addressed at work. But obviously, as an employee, if you're suffering from sleep deprivation, the place of work should be a safe place to actually disclose that you've got an issue and be supported to try and do something about it. And then obviously we heard about the story of Antonio from Lloyd's. So the third kind of approach is about recovery, helping employees to recuperate. So basically, again, helping employees to understand the impact of excessive screen time on their mental well-being is to actually consider work-life balance in relation to sleep, encourage your employees to have screen breaks, including a break from social media and news channels throughout the day. Hydration is really important, so make sure that people have access to water. Encouraging exposure to natural light, as sunshine helps the body recover natural rhythms disrupted by poor sleep or lack of sleep. Another action is around kind of walking meetings and breaks from work that involve stepping out of the workplace can be promoted. And in many cases, employers have a quiet space away from their desk where employees can eat lunch, and consider providing spaces for staff to relax during the working day or night. So we've got in this toolkit, as with all of our toolkits, we've got fantastic resources. So rather than reinventing the wheel, we actually signpost you to the best freely available resources available. So check out our resource page. We've also got a fantastic library of case studies. They're based on real-life case studies. So they feature Anglian Water Group, who actually sponsored this toolkit. We've got a NHS Foundation Trust. And actually there's a case study, in fact it's my case study, although it's anonymised, about the impact of menopause and sleep deprivation. It is a neglected topic. It is a taboo topic, but you know, obviously getting through night sweats has a horrific impact on people's sleep. And you know, in terms of what employers can do about that, is to consider that people like me can be grumpy sometimes. Yeah, and there's also really great case studies from NATS, who look after the vast majority of aircraft flying in the airspace above the UK, Royal Mail Group, Unilever, Yorkshire Building Society. So that's a real whistle-stop kind of walkthrough of the toolkit and why sleep is such an emerging hot topic that you really need to start talking about. And I think we're now going to take some questions.
Yeah, so we've got a few minutes left for questions. I hope that's given everyone a really clear understanding of what's in this toolkit. Lots of tips and tricks that I can see. I hope you've heard something there that's interesting for your company or yourself personally, and you'll have a look in more detail. So I'll invite you to type in any questions now, and just while you do that, I'm going to remind you that the toolkit is on our website. There's 3 very useful videos as well on that page, featuring Dr. Justin Varney from Public Health England. And if you want to tweet, you can see the hashtag there, and we'd encourage you to do so. And Manuel and Louise's contacts are there if you want to follow up. So I can see we've had a few questions in already, and what I'll do, I think this is a good question for you, Louise. First question we've got is, what can employers first start doing to have the biggest impact when improving their employees' sleep in a standard 9-to-5 office environment?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So at the beginning of the toolkit, there's a really helpful checklist of simple things that all employers can do. So the kind of first thing is really about being prepared. So it's like everything, this is about leadership. It's about communicating to employees that you actually recognise the impact of sleep deprivation. In terms of any kind of health and wellbeing initiative, we would absolutely recommend that this is done in co-production with your employers, so it's not done to you, but actually in terms of consulting employers about their sleep and any problems they experience with getting the right amount and quality of sleep. And also, again, what is well covered off in the toolkit is really understanding your legal duty of care to employees, which is really important, and particularly around driving, and most employees will be driving. In terms of encouraging sleep and recovery, is ask employers what will help them and encourage them to take the lead on implementing change, and identify the threats to good sleep in the workplace and the particular issues your employers may face. It is often worth conducting a workplace assessment for good lighting and ventilation, and obviously signposting managers and employers to information about better sleep and recovery. And if you're got access to OC health services, is be clear about kind of advertising that. And obviously from our resource section, you can actually identify external resources you might want to use. And then finally is about providing knowledge and training. So including training, information and guidance on sleep and recovery for line managers, but also for all employees. As we've said, is for line managers, that can often be a difficult conversation. So having that support and kind of pathway referrals is really, really important. So take a look in the toolkit and you'll see a lot more information.
Fantastic. Lots of different ways then to get started. We've had another question, and the question is, what are the biggest barriers to employees tackling the issue in the workplace? I think the focus on what's the biggest thing you need to get over to start with. Manuel, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think there are 3 main things which are the biggest barriers to employers really tackling this issue. I think the first one is stigma. This issue touches between the personal and the private, so it's about creating a working environment where employers feel that they can discuss this issue. And I think we need to change the perception of sleep as well. Being tired at sleep isn't a sign of weakness. It can lead to other things. It can be a reflection of other things. The other thing is that sleep, it can be an underlying symptom of mental health issue condition, which can again lead to other conversations. The third thing is also that talking about sleep can lead to Pandora's box, basically. So employees need to be ready to talk about key issues affecting employees, such as stress, relationship problems, and other things really. So I think these are the three main things really.
Very good. Yeah. Very interesting. Thank you. We've got 3 minutes left, and we have one or two more questions.
There was one who asked for a case study. Can you find that one about an NHS trust or something?
So the question that's been asked here is, do you have any examples of how NHS trusts or organisations have done with
the toolkit from Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Foundation Trust, which is a sort of model case study to answer that particular question.
Okay, great, thank you. Always good when we can answer a question quite so directly. Another question, does evidence suggest the issue is better or worse in large or small businesses or in specific sectors?
When we embarked on this, the development of the toolkit is, as I said, the evidence base is very, very, very sparse. It's literally, in terms of PHE's evidence review, it was almost just 1.5 size of A4. So in terms of that kind of evidence, we don't have. All I would say is that in terms of impacting SMEs as well as large organisations, it's an issue for every organisation. Obviously, with an SME, if someone's really suffering from sleep deprivation and isn't able to perform well, that's going to have a massive issue. We did test this toolkit with SMEs, so there are practical things that you can do.
Great. Okay. I see that we are out of time, unfortunately. I see there were further questions, and all I would encourage you then, the contact details are on the screen. If you'd like to get in touch with Manuel or Louise, please do so. I think the main message we want to get from this is continue the debate.
Yeah.
Over to you, Louise.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, everyone. And just to say that, yeah, please do fuel the debate, because it's a bit like mental health. It's getting people to actually have that conversation. So delighted you could join us. And over to Manuel.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you for joining us, and I would really be grateful if you could support us in this journey, really, and share the toolkit as much as possible with colleagues and with other people around your organisation. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and please email me if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you all for listening, and have a great afternoon.